Here in the United States, we see a massive problem every 2 years. And this massive problem has to do with lawmakers who are only giving you one side of the story. This is one of the reasons why here on this channel, I try to give you both sides of the story. I try to give you the good and the bad from President Biden or former President Donald Trump. I try to give you the good and the bad, the ups and the downs from lawmakers, what they're looking at, passing this bill versus that bill. And well, today we're going to get right back into it, because what's happening now is we are seeing the Senate is barreling towards a border fight. And the reason for this is because this is something that Republicans say this must happen. So what we are facing is Democrats saying they're going to come to Republicans' aid and help them pass a bill. However, that might not be entirely true. We're also going to get to why we saw today that we are now getting reports that the U.S. GDP grew at a 5.2% rate in the third quarter. This was revised up from what it was previously. I want to explain what's going on here, and it has to do with government funding. So again, make sure you watch this entire video, and before we get into the rest of this, all I ask is one thing. It takes 2 seconds. Go ahead and hit that like button if you enjoy these daily updates. And now, let's begin. So why would Democrats decide now that it is time for them to pass some type of border security bill? Well, it's simple, and it has to do with other countries. What we know is that the senators are headed for a showdown over a U.S.-Mexico border deal that's critical to unlocking aid for Ukraine and for Israel. We've seen this before, where one party says, if you don't give us this, we're not going to give you that. And guess what happened? Republicans said, if we don't see a U.S.-Mexico border deal, then you can just forget about any additional funding for Ukraine. You can forget about any additional funding for Israel. That money that is tied into Israel that could potentially be going to Gaza and help with humanitarian assistance there, sorry, that's off the table as well. Because Republicans are standing firm that we now have a speaker that's going to fight for us, and we are going to use him in every sense. So that's something that Democrats have to get used to. Now, I want to explain something. What we have faced over the past month or so is we are continuing to face opposition against a bill for Israel. And it's not because Republicans do not want to provide additional funding to Israel, don't want to provide some support, because they do. They back Israel. However, what they do not support is taking the money out of just going deeper into debt. They want to pay for it in some way with funding that has already been spent. This is why Republicans in the House of Representatives have already passed a bill that would pull $14.3 billion from the IRS's existing funding, and it would just be pushed over to Israel. Democrats say no, that's not something they're willing to do. But here's the reason why this is important. It's because the United States, our GDP, our gross domestic product, it grew at a 5.2% rate in the third quarter of 2023. You're probably thinking, well, why would that matter? Why would what consumers spend, why would that matter for any bill moving forward? Well, it's because of this. And I can read you some more of the facts, but it says, of the above, government spending contributed a whopping 0.94% to GDP, or a 5.5% contribution. This was the highest in almost 3 years and one of the highest prints on record. In other words, presenting Bidenomics. If we read this is former President Donald Trump's former chief economist. He says, why is growth so strong? One factor has been government spending, which grew an unsustainably 4.7% in real terms over the last year. Outside the pandemic, this is one of the fastest rates in decades and works at a cross purpose with monetary policy objectives. So what they are saying and what the facts that we received is that government spending is contributing to the GDP. So if you remember, President Biden said that Bidenomics would prevent a recession. Bidenomics would bring down inflation. Do you know what Bidenomics is doing? Based off the print that we received, Bidenomics, yes, is keeping us away from a recession because there's so much government spending, it's boosting our GDP. That's the problem. That's also one of the reasons why Democrats are more inclined to work with Republicans to pass a bill because they know they don't have another chance. If Democrats continue to pass bills in the way that they have been, according to recent polls, the American people are frustrated because our debt tally continues to go up and up and up. And we are not cutting into that like some said we would. Now, one of the issues we are facing, and that when I say we, I'm talking about the American people, is that the American people, according to recent reports, have savings that continues to dwindle. Look at this. This was back in January 2021, where the American people had savings about 21%. Now, okay, it's about 16.5%. And this is the share of U.S. adults who say they can cover basic expenses using savings for at least 6 months. And if you've been following me here on this channel for some time, you probably know that one of the things that I recommend to just anybody is to make sure you have some type of an emergency fund. And I say this not because I think you're absolutely going to need it, but I say this because, and I hate doing it, because you could invest this money and you could actually have a return. But if you have 3 to 6 months of an emergency fund, that means all your expenses, let's say your expenses are $2,000 per month. That means your housing, car payments, food, right, electricity, any of your expenses. $2,000 a month. I know it's very low, but I'm doing this for the sake of math purposes. It's $2,000 a month. Well, if you need 3 months, that means you need $6,000. And if you need 6 months of this, you need $12,000. You need it in savings. It needs to be liquid. You can go and get it anytime that you want. Okay? Well, the amount of people that say they can do that, 16.5%. This is up from what it was, but it's still fairly low. Now, the reason why I bring this up is because if our savings, our basic expenses can't be covered in an emergency, the problem is, if we are looking at the United States government for additional assistance, to give us more nutrition assistance like SNAP benefits or WIC, not going to happen. You're looking for a larger Social Security check when things get tough and the economy struggles, it's not going to happen. You want a boost to your unemployment benefits like we received during the pandemic? Sorry, it's not going to happen. This is where we're at. With our debt continue to climb, the U.S. government is very limited as to what they can do in order to provide a little bit more assistance. So, just wanted to fill you in on what's going on at this time. Right now, Republicans and Democrats are going to continue to fight over this border security deal. But what comes out of it, I don't know. That's where I'm going to continue to keep you updated on everything that's going on. All I ask is you do 2 things. First, hit the like button if you enjoyed today's update. Also, click that subscribe button so you never miss an update. And I'll see you guys on the next one.